Welcome everybody to a brand new episode of Mocast, and by popular demand, we have to get down and dirty and talk about Ret Paladins in Dragonflight. Well, first off, it is my main dispatch and it has been my main for the longest time, and I'm biased here, but this is very warranted. I do believe that we have strong reasoning to talk a lot about, maybe even rant.
Well, after the feral changes and the fact that Ret has been put in the same bucket with feral, and still like now Ret seems to have been left behind a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, you know,
it's kind of like, come on, man, what's going on? Let's
little
talk
boy
about
in the corner, nobody pays attention to me. Come on, man. But anyways, as we did like more than a year ago, we have great guests for you today. Starting off with Bolas, who a lot of you may know from the Hammer of Ret Discord, and also the writer for the Wowhead guide on Ret Paladin. Super active. I know, Bolas, you still do Simcraft stuff, APLs and all of that? Also that as well.
I do the Wowhead stuff, hang out in Discord a lot, do most of the APL stuff for Simcraft, but not for Ret, but not everything.
Yeah. So I mean, people think I think know you as well from the Max podcast as well. The talk about Paladins over there. Although there was not too much emphasis over there. Hopefully we can go over a lot more today. But also we have Frenchie, another prominent figure from the Hammer of Ret Discord. I see he's always active over there. I remember on the last episode, Frenchie, you were dabbling a little bit into the Syncra stuff. You still doing that around these days, or just doing all helping out fellow Rets in the Hammer of Ret?
I mostly just help people out. Yeah, Bolas does the EPL. We have a few people, like the people who do Ret. We're pretty like into it. So yeah, the people who do the Sims are not me, but I do like try to stay on top of everything, so I have best answers for people. For sure. Great stuff. So we have the links for the boys in the description. We have the links for Frenchie's Twitch is still there. I've seen you. I think the last stream was with, I think, Council, but if I'm not mistaken, on your Twitch. Yeah, so maybe.
It's there.
It's been a couple of weeks. I'm looking for a new guild and stuff. So
it's in the works. Yeah, man. Yeah. And also the Wowhead guide for Ret Paladin from Bolas, as well as a couple of links to his feedback on Ret Paladin in Dragonflight, which I very much recommend you guys to read. I think there's like super valid points over there, and we're probably going to discuss a lot of it in here. And who knows, maybe some new stuff. So I guess we can kick it off with the current status quo of Ret Paladins in Dragonflight with the latest beta build. I think the first beta build, there was a couple of changes over there, and I know Bolas has his initial like thoughts on Wowhead. I don't know if that got updated or not, but it's more the fact that there's still interesting stuff that can be done with the tree, but the main concerns, I would say for the last more than 5 years now, the main issues of Ret have not been addressed in this all these iterations of the talent builds. So I'm going to start off with Bolas, and then we're going to switch it off to Frenchie. Bolas, we talked about, let's start it off with the survivability part, okay? So we have Divine Protection now. Let's elaborate a bit. What do you think on their introducing that? 2-minute cooldown, all of that.
It's hard to really complain about it because we were really asking for them to give us some kind of other defensive. But the fact that it's a choice node with Shadow Vengeance, and it's also a 2-minute cooldown instead of a 1 minute like it used to be, is really a kick in the teeth. It's like, in most situations, I think it's hard to justify picking Divine Protection over Shadow Vengeance, just the damage thing, all the absorb versus DR aside, the damage of Shadow Vengeance is just pretty good by itself. And Divine Protection, you have to take so much damage for it to be worth the equivalent amount of as a defensive as Shadow Vengeance. Yeah. I don't know. As a 1 minute cooldown, it'll be a lot more reasonable to want to take because you could use it so much more frequently. But when they're the same cooldown, it's just hard to... You have to really value the fact that it's off GCD and also just a flat DR that doesn't get taken up like an absorb does.
Do we know for sure if it's a 2 minute? Since on Wowhead it says 1 minute. I don't know if the game tooltip.
It's 2 minutes. Yeah, it's 2 minutes.
It's 2 minutes. Yeah. There's a couple of things in the Wowhead talent calculator that are going to be like slightly off, but if we come across them, I'll just let you know.
Right. Yeah. What did you think, Frenchie?
I think, like I said, like the Divine Protection it's nice to have it. It's going to be useful at some points, but because it's 20% DR, like I did, it's like super napkin math, right? But if Shield of Vengeance is like a 30k absorb, then you take 30k damage, you get value from it. To get 30k like damage reduced from Divine Protection, you need to take like 150k damage, and then you get 30k mitigated.
That's kind of like, GG.
Obviously, it could be like over time, right? But you might just die from that, so it doesn't really matter in some cases. I think defensively we're going to look a little bit better because with spell warding that could be like very useful. But
definitely,
I think Divine Prot could be like slightly stronger or slightly shorter cooldown, just like 5% in like 15 seconds to make it really feel like an upgrade over like Shield of Vengeance, or like a choice you're actually making to be more defensive and not just same defensive and just you lose the damage component of Shield of Vengeance, which is like, it kind of adds up to like 4 or 5% of your damage over a fight. So
for sure,
it is valuable.
I think there's a point to be made. I know I looked this up on the beta. Unbreakable Spirit reduces the cooldown of it, if I'm not mistaken. I think on the beta, when I put it, it was 1 minute and 30 seconds or 20 seconds.
It's like 1.24 or something.
Yeah, something like that. There's that, but it's a different can of worms. So here's I'm gonna be the devil's advocate a little bit here, and just throw you guys the multitude of comments we had in the past when we talked about Ret Paladins. So first, I'm sure you know about this. So what do you mean Ret Paladins are squishy? You have Word of Glory, you have Divine Shield, and Shield of Vengeance. Those are huge defensives. Could you please comment on that, please? I'm not going to do it.
Well,
I think if you use Holy Power to heal yourself instead of doing damage, you should just spec Holy. Like it's useful in a bind, but like most of the time, what just happens is in a raid, like Lords of Dread, the boss like starts doing the cloud thing, and like everyone starts taking damage. Healers say, raid leader says defensives. You press Shield of Vengeance, it lasts 1 tick, and then you're just like, Frenchie needs an external, like Frenchie needs self-healing, because during the burst, like AoE spinny phase, I'm not spending, I'm not using Word of Glory on myself. I'd rather die, so heal me instead. Like that's going to be what the solution is going to be to survive that ability. So Walk is not a thing. Bubble lasts has a long cooldown. Obviously, you can use it like twice per fight, but often at times it's assigned to something. Like it's going to be really good at this one moment. So all the other instances of damage, you're just there, like left out to dry. Oh, I hope Shield of Vengeance will be enough. So I don't know. And Shield of Vengeance is not always enough, and more often than not isn't enough. So I don't know if we're really that tanky. Bubble is very good though, obviously.
True.
That's my answer for that.
I mean, it's good, but again, in a raid environment, if you're in a immunity class, you're probably assigned to do something with that bubble, and in most of the cases, it will not be like the per se defensive for whatever mechanic that will happen. That's just in raid specifically.
Yeah.
And Shield of Vengeance, man, you pointed that shit exactly how it works. So, like, when the raid leader pops, okay, use defensives, and you pop your only defensive, the Shield of Vengeance, and that goes out in 1 second. You're like, damn, there's nothing else.
I sure pressed my button. I did a lot there.
Yeah. Bolas, do you have the same take on this?
Yeah, it really feels like you're paying a very steep price for having an immunity as a melee. Like, Bubble is really good, but that's really all you've got. Like, having spell warding and Dragonflight as well is pretty massive, because now you have basically 2 bubbles. Like, almost all damage that you take in a raid is going to be magic. So effectively, it's just like having a second charge of it, but on a 3-minute cooldown. So that's going to be much better for increasing your survivability in those situations where you might need to save either spell warding or bubble from a mechanic, but you can use the other one in a desperate situation. But the healing just isn't, even like in a situation where you are okay spending holy power to heal yourself, there's a lot of situations where the healing isn't really effective at actually keeping you alive. Like in the Lords of Dread example, I think it's a really good one. If you're Word of Glorying yourself between the ticks of the boss AoE, you're taking like 20% and 30% of your health, however much it is, you're not going to be generating enough holy power to effectively heal yourself back up enough so that you're not just going to die in 2 or 3 ticks again anyway. Like the amount that you can heal yourself is not equivalent to how much damage you're actually taking during these high damage windows.
Yeah, plus the fact that you're losing out on DPS giga time. I mean, that's it.
Oh, for sure.
You're out.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people complain about Ret's like ability to tank damage in PvP mostly because they can just run at you with wings and one-shot you during bubble.
Yeah.
But in PvP, like it's a bit different.
It's
I don't
different.
PvP enough to really have an opinion about it, but I feel like with Mass Dispel and Shatter existing, like bubble is good, but it's still kind of, you know,
people who know what they do, they know how to handle a Ret Paladin.
You're just gonna press wings, get CC'd, bubble out of the CC, get Mass Dispel, and get CC'd again. Yeah. That's how it feels like a lot of the time. So that's not very good. And like the last thing I have for the defensives is it's all on global. Like you can't react to stuff super easily. Like I played DK for Castle Nafria, and you have Shell, you have Icebound, and you have Lichborn, which is like not a massive defensive, but it's still 10%. And all of those are off global, and it feels so much smoother. Like you can grip something to do like your utility job. You can grip something and Icebound at the same time if like, oh no, it like targeted me or something. You can run through like a swirly while DPSing while DPSing like that exact second, I mean, because you just shell and just run straight through while still hitting death codes or whatever you need to. It feels so smooth to be able to do that. And
dude, when you play other melee, you're just like, what have I been missing out on? It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah.
Like I've been playing Warrior in Prog the last couple of years, and Spell Reflect is the same thing where it's like, holy shit, you just get to press this button every 30 seconds and it does so much DR.
And sometimes there's a ton of damage as well.
That's true.
But mostly in dungeons, you're just like reflecting something and the mob just dies.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to like develop too much of the concept of a cryodin here, but I think at this point it's quite warranted because I believe all of us have played other specs, and the differences which you guys pointed out are huge. I also main a rogue, and boy, it's like worlds apart in terms of like almost everything.
I mean, for every person that comments again on this, that the Ret Paladins have like so much healing and lay on hands and whatever, the like two best comparisons we have is like you mentioned, Rogue, where a cloak is on a 2-minute cooldown, and if you play Outlaw, it's on a 1.2-minute cooldown or something like that. And Enhancement Shaman, which is like maybe the closest representation with like big ass healing surges, you're also spending resources with Enhancement Shaman, but at the same time you have a 40% DR on a 1 or 2-minute cooldown. What is Astral Shift, which is way different from Ret. And I think maybe why Ret hasn't gotten a lot of defensive is probably because Bubble is so good, and devs are thinking, well, you're immune to like everything, but that's basically a raid assignment. Yeah,
it's such an old concept right now. I know Bubble is on paper it's very strong. When you look at it, it's like immunity to everything. I know, but Bolas may point it out perfectly. The price you have to pay for having that is just too much, man. Fuck it, I don't want a Bubble anymore if that's the price I have to pay. Give me something on a lower cooldown that's actually a damage reduction, and we're Gucci. It's the main thing. You mentioned Rogue. Rogue also has Feint, man, and that's like what it's like AoE damage.
Yeah, a lot of rogues use cheat death a lot. They keep them cooldown.
Hey guys, we used to have the auto bubble in Legion. Wasn't that in Legion?
That was.
Well, I mean, Unbreakable Spirit, and like currently we have Divine Cold, like the conduit. So bubble is like a 3-minute cooldown, which is super nice. But the biggest thing about the Legion one is it was off global. So like nowadays, if I'm gonna, this would kill me, I'll just bubble it. Before I would just be like, just run through it. It'll kill me. I'll bubble. I can keep pressing my buttons. So the global thing feels really nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do not stress this enough. Ret Paladin being such a heavy global cooldown spec. I think Rebuke is off of global cooldown.
Leon Hands is off global.
That's the only reason I press Leon Hands is because I get hit by something and I don't know if I'll survive long enough to bubble, like because of the GCD. So I just panic Leon Hands instead.
Yeah, man.
I do think defensively it'll be a lot better with spell warding. Like, I don't want to cry too much because Divine Protection is kind of weak, but spell warding is kind of huge. So with bubble and spell warding, we might be nearly unkillable in raid. So it's kind of. I don't really know what to make of it yet until like raid testing, or you can test like Mythic 15 keys or something, so there's a bit more pain coming out, because in normal dungeons everything gets one shot, so you can't really test accurately stuff.
Oh yeah. But the thing about spell warding, and this kind of segues into the other topic I would like to put on the table. So basically spell warding is very nice for you as a paladin, but it's also very useful for, people from your party and stuff. And this is kind of like the concern, right? You have that, you can use it on yourself, but we're going into, okay, why bring a Ret Paladin to a dungeon? Why bring it to a raid? This lack of...
Excellent questions.
Yeah, those are the questions science can't answer.
Because I've seen discussions around, okay, Reds will bring spell warding, but on the other hand, you're going to have Prot and Holy who can bring the same thing. There's not much reasoning for it. Oh, we have a battle race now, which is really cool. I mean, I can dig that for sure. It's part of the coolness. But being like, I don't know, it feels like it's still lacking something. How do you guys feel like the old blessings? Let's put it on the table. Okay, what can they do to actually have a smaller set? I'm not talking about, I don't know, stuff that Warlock has, or, you know, some always guaranteed spot. I'm not talking about that. But I don't know, blessings, the old blessings, or I don't know, divine intervention. I don't know, something that could work and have somebody, you know, just say, okay, we need Ret Paladins for this fight. Do you guys have any ideas on this?
I think you could have some like really random utility, because it's kind of understandable that like Blizzard, I think Ian said on like the interview he did, they don't really like doing like, oh, here's 5% damage, so Paladin or like Ret Pallies now bring 5% mastery or 5% haste to the raid. That's kind of like boring, right, for most classes. It's why personally like I don't like the raid buffs, because the only ones that are interesting are Warlocks, but Warlocks are OP anyways all the time, so it doesn't really matter. So it's like they could give us some unique stuff, like you talent into it, and it's like it puts a cheat death on, like whoever dies next gets cheat death, like, and it has like a 5-minute cooldown or something, which is a bit close to a CR. But now that we have CR, we wouldn't need something like this. But you know, some kind of unique utility that's very
even that's kind of straying too far into Ankh Totem, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of stealing it from them. Yeah, but it could be like a passive for us with like a longer cooldown. It could be like a lot of things. I just don't know. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like when you look at melee, like, or like all DPS classes, if you look at the class as a whole, there's a reason to bring virtually everything, except like maybe you could make an argument that Shaman or Hunter don't bring that much, but everything else has something really nice to bring. And sometimes it feels kind of we're left a bit behind.
How about, okay,
honestly, I don't know.
How about, and then I'm going to kick it off to Bolas as well, but how about the old blessing of wisdom for healers?
For like a raid situation, I think the main issue that Ret has is its class buff is not something you bring a Ret for. It's like Devo is just like a holy thing, right? Like every mythic raid has a holy paladin. So it's not an issue of you need to, you know, paladins aren't useful, because clearly paladins are useful. It's an issue of the second paladin in your raid isn't very useful, or that Ret itself, once you already have a holy paladin, doesn't bring anything useful that you can't already get by just bringing another holy paladin. So like if you need like multiple bops, for example, you know, you can just bring a second holy paladin or like a prop paladin, and that's no problem. Ret has like a bunch of like little things that are all often really useful, like bop or like spell warding now, or, you know, like freedom, off healing, like all these like little things that are actually pretty good. I mean, wisdom could be something valuable that you could bring. Like I think Evoker is getting a mana buff in Dragonflight for healers.
Just remembered. Fuck.
Yeah. So that makes me think that it's pretty unlikely that Ret's going to get it back, you know, before then, because that seems like something they want to, you know, give to their new shiny spec. But I mean, it'd be something that would be valuable that could be brought by Ret that would make you go, hey, you know, we're really happy to have our Ret in our raid group. Because that's like the real issue, right? It's like when you're a GM and you're looking at your raid comp and you're like, okay, which melee do I bring? Do I bring, you know, the Ret, or do I bring the DK, or like the second warrior, or like, you know, the second DH or something? It's like, oh, these classes all bring things that are good for the raid as a whole, like rally or darkness, or like, you know,
your dome
grips, just good stuff. Whereas Ret's is like, okay, I mean, like there's this one fight that we want to buff on, but I guess we can bring the Ret for that fight. But then, like, you know, what else do you really need a Ret for? What else do they really bring to the table that you can't just get from, you know, having different healers?
Yeah, just bring give us Aura Mastery, and then it'll be no problem. But then we'll be kind of OP. It's kind of difficult to balance that kind of stuff.
We used to have that as Reds back in the day, and we used to have a lot of things back in the day. Just gonna make a quick parenthesis. If anyone played Ret in Lich King. That was an interesting time to play a Ret. But granted, there was a lot of new stuff back then, so maybe that was the case. But it has been there in the past. Even Aura Mastery, I remember that, and it was very, very. I remember the old Aura Mastery where I don't know if it was Kata or later, but it used to negate interrupts for people in range as well.
Yeah, that was the one in MOP. I remember that one.
I think so. Yeah, something along those lines. But in any regard, so this is like one of the other issues that still haven't been addressed with the new talent trees in Dragonflight. So we have defensives. Okay, a little bit better with spell wording, I would say. But the solution they had when everybody cried for divine protection wasn't. It still felt like the old Blizzard. I feel like the new Blizzard, with all of the other specs, kind of like, okay, guys, you want this, you can have this. You want this, you can have this. The old Blizzard was always like, oh, you guys want this? Okay, we're going to give it to you, but there's a catch.
Yeah.
Feels like that. So
yeah, I don't know. I think people in general have not really clocked that spell warding is really, really strong. So that's why there's a lot of crying for divine prot, which... I mean, if we become really strong, like unkillable classes, and we are tuned to do good damage, that would be. I mean, I wouldn't cry about that for sure, but I think we're gonna be fine. Like, it's like kind of hot take maybe, but I think we'll be just about fine if the defensives at least ship as it is. I think there's other issues with the talent trees and stuff, but defensively, probably okay, because we can maybe go Dusk and Dawn as well and have like a perma 4% DR, which is like, well, perma, it's like, depends how you play around it or not, we'll have to see, but if it's worth playing around the Dust and Dawn, like double buffs, but yeah, maybe.
I think the thing with defensives is the gap is like not having a short cooldown one, right? Like, I mean, with the Unbreakable Spirit, that kind of closes the gap a little bit, but still having like, a minute and a half on your shortest cooldown defensive is high compared to most melee. Most of the time it's somewhere sort of like 30 seconds to a minute for their, short cooldown, not that powerful defensive stuff like Feint or Spell Reflect or, Lichborn or whatever.
Lichborn is 2 minutes. I think Shell is a better. Yeah.
Oh.
But like even DKs can spend like half their runic power to heal themselves for their whole health bar. So because Death Strike is kind of really, really, really strong, and it's like only half of their resources, because they use runes. So with runic power, is if you get like a dot on you from the boss or something that doesn't count as like environment damage, you're gonna be able to sustain through it with Death Strike, and it's kind of obviously it's a DPS loss, but it doesn't feel anywhere as bad as using WoG on Ret. So
it's
DK is just way too good. I should just reroll to DK at this point, honestly.
Yeah.
Every time it's like, oh man, I wish I had grip. I wish I had a range kick. I wish I had defensive.
Marcel and I have been butting heads. Me being more of a DK player, him being a Ret, and with all the new additions that Ret has to Shadowlands, it's getting closer to DK because I do have to admit DK has a way better life. And we're talking about cooldowns as well. You've mentioned like even with spell warding and bubble. And or divine protection, you're kind of almost like a DK in terms of defensives. The mobility is questionable, and I suspect we'll get to that as well. And not to mention that on top of all of this, DK also has grip, and it's also more tanky. So maybe this paints a better picture as to what the difference is, because they both have to spend their resources to sustain. And like you just mentioned, it's so not the same. I'm so happy spending a Death Strike as a DK, and I know that I'll lose very, very little DPS unless I'm a Frost DK in Breath. But, and not to mention DK doesn't get, 4 points into mobility to be able to do what it's doing now. Yeah. So maybe this, although it's obviously it's not the same, it's not fair, but it is maybe the most first comparison that you can do, where you can take something that's clearly working and you can say, okay, this model of very slow, but hard-hitting melee has all these good stuff. Why isn't Red getting at least something equivalent to that respect to kind of offset some of its weaknesses, at least if it's a choice node or anything like that?
For the mobility, I like to say DK has like reverse mobility, because you just grip stuff to you instead, and then you don't run fast, but you also don't run slowly ever. You just def advance through everything, you never get pushed back. So yeah, the grass is always greener on the other side. I'm sure some DKs will be like, man, if I had bubble, I would go crazy, but I don't know.
I think it's basically bubble.
Yeah, first of all, it is. Yeah, you just immune most debuffs of it, and then if it's damage, you'll be fine. But I have some guildies who like play melee, you know, obviously, like, and people have their ret ult, you know, because it's fun. But they get mad at me complaining during the raid because I'm like, man, if I was on my DK, I would have survived this. If I was on my rogue, I would have like gotten out of that in time. And then it's like they're like, oh, stop complaining. And then they play ret for 2 keys on their ult, and they're like, man, I understand what you're talking about. So it's like it feels bad sometimes. We do have some nice stuff, but yeah, overall, it's like you feel like you're a little bit lower, like a peg lower than other classes, other melees at least.
What did you guys? What was your reaction when you read the reasoning behind the removal of Long Arm of the Law? We can get into the pony stuff as well, but I don't know. Yeah. It was when I read that, it was like, dude, all of these classes are getting big, huge ass blue posts. We're getting a line where we're talking about the fantasy. Almost felt like they were addressing role playing stuff rather than, which I get, it's fine. But when we're talking about Long Arm of the Law, which we used to have, and I've noticed a lot of red mains being happy about it, although the feedback was, hey, maybe make it 2 points, you know, have it a little bit last 1 second longer, anything like that. They removed it. What was your guys' reaction to that?
I kind of have a hot take that I don't really mind the sort of reasoning they had behind it. I kind of get, so sometimes you have periods where they'll give you an ability and then their vision for the class at another point isn't the same and the ability doesn't make sense for the class to still have, right? So clearly for them, they're like, okay, we want Ret to be sort of semi-DK-like, where it's slow-moving but hard-hitting and you don't get slowed. So for, you know, where DK is like Death Advance and they're passive, Ret has freedom. And then Steed as an actual mobility tool. And so that seems to be their thing of, you know, this is what it's just going to be. These are the 2 tools you have. I'm okay with that conceptually, because I think that in almost every situation, those things are enough to get you by. I don't think you, like, if you have full Cavalier 5-second Steed like you do in Shadowlands now, that's enough to get you through pretty much every raid fight. There's a couple of things that I think still are issues with mobility, but they're more sort of small nitpicks, like, you know, Steed being on the GCD and like you not really having a great way to deal with stuff like knockbacks like other melee do. Yeah. But outside of those things, I don't really mind the fact that they're like, okay, our vision for Ret is, you know, relatively slow apart from Steed.
When I first saw the Long Arm of the Law, I was like, whoa, that's Long Arm. And then I realized that it was kind of really tiny compared to the one we had before. It's like half the duration, half the move speed, and Judgment now has nearly double the cooldown than it did back then. So the uptime, or like the amount of times you trigger, was already halved. And then, the other things. I also think it's not, like, back when we had it in WoD, it was our only mobility tool. So it was good that it was really strong and everything. But now we have Horse, and you can get Cavalier by default on the new tree, basically, because you kind of need it to go down. So you have 2 horses, even if they were just the 3-second ones. And you would have had Long Arm. So asking for it to be even stronger would be like having both Speed of Light in WoD and Long Arm, which that's just not okay. It's just unfair for other classes, it feels, because you're just going to be speeding around in, like, think about PvP as well, because they always kind of think about it in the background. You're just sprinting after people, and then if you're still not on them after 6 seconds of sprint, you're still on them, you're still chasing them with Long Arm. So it feels like Long Arm was very weak, and if they did buff it, it would have been just ridiculous. So I'm kind of fine with that change. I think if they made it so, because they added the Consecration talent where you don't get slowed when you're in it, or not slowed as much. If they made that knockback immune or a slow resistance the same way, that could actually be really useful, because you use Consecration a lot, so it would be kind of perma uptime in PvE, which is fine, because in PvE you see the knock ability is coming, you just press Consecration. It doesn't really matter if you've already put it down for DPS or if you put it down to react to it, because you're going to use it either way. So I think they could have given us the knockback thing in some way with the Consecration, because they want us to have like this zone of power where you're standing in it and you have your Consecration talents amping you up and generating holy power. So it's like, if they want us to be Consecration, like, you know, if they want us to like Consecration, make it have some actual huge perks like that, yeah, that's kind of situational, but when they do like pop off, you feel super good about it. Like even in a BG, you see some guys, like you get onto a shaman and you know he's about to thunderstorm, you just press it and then you outplay it and you feel amazing about it. Like that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe that would be OP, but that's for BLIZZ to figure out the numbers. But the mechanics for it could work like that, I think, and it would be a lot nicer than a slight slow resistance. In my opinion, it's kind of minor.
But what would you guys prefer? Would you prefer the actual like version and build of the pony, which is like 4 points in the general tree, or would you prefer some sort of iteration on long arm of the law? So not both, because both would be pretty powerful, I agree. But if it were to you, what would be like personal 100% subjective? Would you prefer a 2-rank long arm of the law, or would you prefer the pony build but maybe a little bit better or something like that?
Definitely not if it's 4 points. 4 points is the 1 second duration talents are pretty miserable to take. But
yeah,
I think Seed is just a pretty fine mobility ability to have. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's been in the game for like 6 years now. You kind of have to just get over it at this point. This is just, it seems like it's what they're sticking with. I don't really mind it that much. I'm pretty happy with having it. It has no like Long Arm of the Law, you'll sometimes run into restrictions where, I need to move fast, but the boss isn't in judgment range, so I'm just walking pace now. Whereas Steed doesn't have any of those kind of restrictions. Yeah, that too.
That was my thing for it. It's like when it was on the long arm that we got in this build, it was so short that you're not. I mean, I'm never gonna hold judgment for movement unless it's like 1 or 2 seconds away. So the chances that you need to move just after you've judged are kind of low. It's kind of rare situations. So I wasn't too torn up about the removal. I think horse is really good because you're moving like you're very fast. So a lot of the times, if it's like a small mechanic, you can like drop it and come back by the time like during the horse duration. So that always feels kind of smooth when you do it that way. I also think that if you didn't spend 4 points in horse, you just spend 4 points on something else, that would feel probably as empty, because you'd have to because of the way the tree is designed, there's like the top third, so you have to spend points in horse. If you didn't spend them in horse, you'd probably spend them to get cleanse, which, cleanse is nice to have that, but again, you're not really using that often anyway, so it feels kind of just meh. It's just there. Okay, I have cleanse. Maybe that one
might just be an issue with how the tree is structured currently, though. They might, if they, fix it a little bit so you actually have some reasonable things you could take instead, then that decision might change. But definitely at the moment, there's like very little cost to just, chucking 4 points in there.
Just pick 5 second long horse, you pick 2 of them. Like I never play with Cavalier because in my brain, I think like Unbreakable Spirit is too good, so I hardly ever play it. And I don't really feel it, the lack of double horse. So suddenly I'll be zooming around. It'll all feel great in Dragonflight. There's no problem for me. Maybe other people complain because they've currently been playing Cavalier only, and now they feel like they have to talent into it again, and it's like frustrating. But for me, it's kind of okay.
It feels a bit too much to have that, and I think the general Paladin talent tree feels a little bit lackluster, at least for us as Rets. And this is another. I don't know why. The fact that we're like basically the only spec. Well, I think there's other specs as well, but we didn't get any like blue post like with the reasoning behind changes and like philosophy like we saw to other specs. I don't know if there's like any other spec that has this silence, and this has been the thing for a long time. Maybe the dev who worked on Paladin isn't working there anymore. Maybe there's some sort of transition or whatever it is. But okay, general Paladin tree aside, let's talk a little bit about the actual red tree. And I guess we can cover like all the bases, but my first curiosity is like, and Frenchie mentioned this, like the whole consecration thing. How do you guys feel about that? They're clearly trying to push some sort of consecration build. They're trying to put some sort of Blade of Justice build or something like that over there. What's your first thoughts on this?
I don't like Consecration.
What a shock.
Pushing it as this iconic Paladin ability, and I'm like, Wake of Ashes has been in the game for like 6 years. That's 10 times more iconic than anything we've had since vanilla, right? Like the only thing that's really iconic is like Wings, and I don't know, I would say like Wake of Ashes, Templar's Verdict, Hammer of Wrath, Consecration is, to me, it's just a prot ability, honestly. They get so much more from standing in it. They get like the damage reduction. It's just that alone is huge, and Ret is like some tiny damage.
But Frenchie, it will generate holy power. You stay there, you're gonna have more holy power, man.
It's hard to test that kind of stuff. I think the holy power generation is kind of good.
Yes.
I think, honestly, I'm more interested about the exorcism, like splashing when it's inside Consecration.
Yeah,
that sounds like it could do some good damage.
It works, but
it's, I don't know. I think Consecration, trying to push Consecration is kind of weird, because they could just make Divine Storm talents if they want to like have some AoE or like single target options. Divine Storm is like, that's like way cooler, and that's actually iconic, because Wrath Classic is out, and if you get hit by Divine Storm, you go back to the graveyard. So
remember the good old days.
It's that one's more iconic. Like, obviously don't make it single target, because that would be weird, but like so strong would be single target. But just do Divine Storm talents, like Holy Power Refund, or your next builder cleaves when you Divine Storm. I don't know. Instead of, I just don't like Consecration. That's boring, and I think it does no damage.
It still doesn't. It's like puny damage. What about you, Bolas? What do you think about this whole Consecration push?
I think they've kind of like painted themselves into a corner in some regards. So like, there's not that many abilities that you can pick to buff the damage of that work for all three specs for the class tree, right? So when they go, okay, let's pick an ability that all three specs, of Paladin use that we can like damage buff. So like Crusader Strike, okay, that's one. Consecration, all right, let's check a bunch of talents in that buff Consecration damage, because all the specs use that, right? It's like, okay, well, at this point you're kind of committed into, having Ret use Consecration for these talents. So by that point, if they put some talents in that buff its damage as well, whatever. My main issue with Consecration is I just don't like pressing the button at all. If I would prefer that it just didn't exist for the spec generally, but given that it already exists, I mean, if they put some talents in that buff its damage and it, it works, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll press it if it does more damage, because that would be dumb not to. But I think in the first place, it's kind of
I mean, I don't mind it with Consecrated Blade so much, because you're not actually having to press the button at that point. You just sort of get it from your natural rotation anyway.
Yeah, I can't remember. I told you about my problem with Consecrated Blade. And
with it's Dust, or
because Consecrated Blade is your blade resets, put a Consecration down, which is it's cool, right? You get some passive AoE, and if you pick the Holy Power talent, you press Blade, and then you get free Holy Power on top of the actual Blade Holy Power. That's nice. But when you play Wake Resets, the talent for Wake of Ashes resets, the Consecrated Blade talent loses value, because suddenly you're casting less blades. You're casting Wake of Ashes instead of blades, so you lose out on Consecrations. It's just kind of weird to me.
It negates itself.
It's like you pick it so you do more damage, obviously, because you get free Consecration. You pick the other one, you do more damage too, but if you could get Consecrations from Wake of Ashes when the two talents are selected, then it would be like a net gain. But otherwise, it feels like you're picking it and then you're going back down slightly. So
and they're both like talents that you'd want to pick an AoE as well, or like some kind of cleave situation.
Yeah. Yes, because every time I've made like a red single target tree, Consecrated Blade is just not an option in my head. But but on AoE, definitely, it's a second Consecration. Like, with how many talents buff it better be doing some damage. So you might as well pick it.
You'd hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's kind of we'll have to find out. That tuning.
What do you guys feel about them having Divine Toll over there as well, without ringing clarity?
Without ringing clarity, it's worthless in my mind. Like,
I mean,
because it becomes an AoE only button. But I feel like on AoE, you'll be fine playing with like Execution Sentence if it's like tuned to be fine. You'll be fine playing like Execution Sentence, Final Reckoning, and the what's it called? And Empyrean Endowment, because like over a minute, Empyrean Endowment is I think it's just more holy power than Divine Toll on its own. because it gives you 2 free spenders, and the other one gives you like 5 holy power. So,
I mean, I tested this in a lot of the dungeons on alpha before the beta, and playing with Divine Toll, and it just felt like it was maybe 1 or maybe 2 extra judgments. It was so bad. And I think, I don't know if Bolas posted about this in one of his feedbacks or whatever, but I felt like a lot of pallies complain about this. It's like, dude, this Covenant ability makes no sense without bringing clarity, because okay, sure, you can have an argument about it in single target, but there's other options over there that are clearly superior in single target than Divine Toll. So you would pick it for AoE mainly in this current build, right? I don't know. What do you think, Bolas? Same page?
I mean, mostly. Divine Resonance is still like pretty valuable. There's a lot of things that synergize the Judgment with, like, you know, the new Sanctified Wrath, and was it Seal of Wrath, the one that duplicates the Judgment, Balance Judgment. There's things that work with Divine Resonance that are interesting, but you just lose all of the synergy with Execution Centers and Final Reckoning. Like, all your old 1 minute stuff just doesn't really work together without the big burst of holy power right after you press your Execution Sentence.
Yeah, that's my main problem with it. Divine Resonance, they had to nerf it by half. Remember, before Sanctum, it used to be 30 seconds. You got 6 judgments out. That was a lot. Then they made it 15, and it's still like, it was still a best legendary by a mile. Or it was very, very, very good.
Yeah.
Bringing clarity is like the only reason it feels good to press Divine Toll on single target. Like, you remember, I mean, right now, if I don't proc Ringing Clarity like to at least 3 holy power, not even 4, from Toll, my brain lags.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Press Toll, like
what?
Because you press it and you get 3 or 4 holy power. That's just how it works. But now it's like you get 1. It's like, did I press it? You get 2, and you're like, oh damn, I only got 2. So Ringing Clarity is that's Divine Toll to me. Not at least for single target. On AoE, it doesn't matter. You get a full bar of holy power no matter what you do. But yeah, it's a bit limp right now.
There's also the I don't know how you guys feel about this. There's why do they keep wanting to push Justicar's Vengeance? This has been a dead talent since its inception. The fact that it incentivizes you to have the target stunned. Okay, maybe the encounter, be that Mythic Plus or Raid, maybe the encounter will have some sort of thing. I don't know. Was Sludge Fist stunned during the whole thing? Was that considered a stun? Okay,
I think so.
So that would be very situational.
But that's so niche, and they still putting it on the tree. This, I don't know. Do you guys do you see potential in this in any capacity? I'm just curious.
Well, I'm pretty sure they nerfed its damage and made it 3 holy power. Just like a couple weeks ago.
But still,
I think it's a bit smoother to play because it's 3 holy power, right? But 2 problems. First of all, honestly, you're still better off just pressing Templar's Verdict and then building 3 holy power again, and then using Word of Glory on yourself for like the healing and damage. Obviously, it takes a lot longer, but it's more healing and more damage. And the current place in the talent tree is like completely inaccessible because it's so far to one side that you're never going to play it on single target because you have to go through like you might play it on single target, but whatever. And also, even on Sludge Fist, I'm pretty sure they nerfed it during Shadowlands beta because when we could test Sludge Fist, they realized, people might use it on that. So they nerfed stun
Red might do some ridiculous damage. Better watch out.
Just the card used.
Did you see like 100% extra or something and nerfed it to 50?
Yeah, they nerfed it to 50 from 100 just because they probably saw, oh no, Rets might do damage on Sludge Fist.
Yep.
It's like
use Divine Purpose procs on JV.
Yeah, that was definitely going to be a thing. I just think if they want to give us some utility, they could use that and make it a passive that when you spend holy power, you like heal your group. They could do something like that. That would feel a lot more useful than a button I haven't pressed since I like leveled in Legion. And in Legion, I didn't like doing the leveling patch of Legion. I didn't even raid, so I was like completely, doing my own thing, not looking at guides or anything. So I was like, this is cool. Maybe I won't die when leveling, which you don't do anyways. But that's the only time I'd use it.
Yeah, there was a situation.
I'm not sure who's this like the talent is designed for, right? Because it's obviously it's not for PvEs because we never take it.
No, it looks like PvP.
Don't like it either. Like it's not a PvP talent. Like you might look at it and go, oh, the PvEs just don't get it. You know, they just don't understand how it works in PvP or whatever. But no, they don't take it ever either. They don't like it at all.
Yeah. There was a time in Legion where this would be taken experimentally in some situations. I used to arena a lot in Legion, but it was very short-lived, and eventually people figured out that it's still shit. And since that point on, I'm very curious to see if I would be a fly on the wall into like the spreadsheets of talent usage on Blizzard, just to see what the percentage is for Justicar's Vengeance, like for the last 6 years or so. I don't know, but it's.
I don't know. I don't want to flame too hard, but I think because it's like an ability that you press and it heals you, it looks really appealing to people who don't press defensives.
It's a trap.
Because but that's kind of it, right? Like, because it was comparing with was it Unbreakable Spirit that it was competing with? No, right? It's competing with Healing Hands.
With the Healing Hands,
and Selfless Healer.
Yeah.
And okay, so it's not a defensive thing actually, but it's just bait. Yeah, no. It's just bait.
It is bait.
I thought it competed with Unbreakable Spirit, so I was like, okay, well, if you don't value pressing defensive before you take damage, then having a heal would be nice. But it's not even that. It's just bait. The other talents on that row are better. Like, press Justicar's Vengeance 4 times, you probably don't even add up to a free Selfless Healer proc from spending Holy Power to get a Flash of Light. It's like... It's just bait. I think it just it's designed to make Ret look worse.
Like
I've seen a lot of new players as well just like take it because they see it on the talent tree and are like, oh, this is an extra spender. This must be more damage because it's a talent that I can take. Therefore, I will take it and use it instead of Templar's Verdict. Like, people are just getting baited into taking a spell that's just worse damage because they just don't realize.
It's a new player
and
trap.
Templar's Verdict legit does like 25% more damage.
On top of the fact that your main damage spender is way better, and your, let's say, main healing spender is way better as well. It's just like, dude, it's. But since we're on the topic on that point over there in the talent points on that zone, I was always curious to know a little bit what your take on the fact that there seems that their philosophy is sort of like single target T on the right side and more AoE-ish cleave on the left side. But on the right side, you look at things like Imperium Power and, Tempest of the Linebringer. And then on the same side, you have Vindication and Final Verdict and all of that. Where do you guys stand on this? I've seen a lot of comments on our videos. It's like, but yeah, we like this because we have single target, but we also have some AoE. So we kind of like have best of both worlds.
I don't really see the tree as being split into single target and AoE as much as sort of split into areas of synergy, if that makes sense. Yeah. So like on the right side, you've got a bunch of Blade of Wrath synergy, right? So you've got Blade of Wrath and Expurgation and Consecrated Blade and stuff like that. And then you've got, Imperium Power leading into Tempest. And on the left side, you've got a bunch of Judgment synergy where you've got Zeal that procs off Judgment, and you got, all the Judgment buffs, Boundless Judgment, all that kind of stuff. Seal of Wrath is kind of like the
weird
outlier, kind of in a weird spot. But then you've also got a line where you can sort of take Consecration synergy, where you can take the one that buffs its damage when you Divine Storm, and then you can take the thing that generates Holy Power off it, and then Exorcism, obviously, like does more AoE damage when you have Consecrate down. So there's little lines little paths that you can go down. So I think it's designed pretty well in that regard, where there's sort of it leads you in directions that are interesting, that sort of all have niches that you can go down, that you can pick if you want to go down. So I don't know if it's single target versus AoE as much, but it is sort of like micro builds, which I really like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it's too much left and right. Even in the lower third of the tree, yes, you go from like the Tempest side with like the Blade stuff into Final Verdict if you want, or like all the way down to Vanguard's Momentum. But at the same time, because you can go from the middle, from like Crusade, Hand to Hindrance and Healing Hands, that just opens all 3 options like in the bottom of the tree. So I don't think you really have to go one side or the other. You can go like for everything on the right, and then you can still end up at Execution Sentence that's like all the way down on the left. if you put 1 point in hindrance, which I think you have to on the way down, unless you go for like the consecration one, the consecration choice node.
Yeah.
So I think everything is kind of accessible. My only issue really is if you're trying to do a really like AoE spec, you go like for Tempest the Lightbringer and you go for Empyrean Power, but you can't get the Judgment that like bounces.
Yeah.
And that feels like a really good AoE talent, but you can't get it because by the time you get down to Tempest, it's time to go to the bottom third, and the bottom third is just so much stronger than anything a Judgment extra bounce can do. So it's kind of a shame in that way. Like, I've been playing on Classic, I've been playing like a warrior, and it feels a bit different the way they've designed the trees for specs, because it's like you can get basically your whole class or your whole spec, you can get it from there, and then you can get some like situational stuff. So you have Sweeping Strikes, Mortal Strike, Blade Storm, like, which is AoE obviously, but Mortal Strike's like single target, and you can get like Slam talents if you want them for single target. But I don't have them because I just do BGs on that. So I have like some charge stun instead. So it's like I don't need slam, I just take charge stun. But it's like it feels like you get the whole class and a couple perks here and there, depending if you're doing more PvE or PvP. In this tree, it feels like you're getting like you have to really decide what do you want that's part of your class.
There's for balance judgment specifically, that's having 2 points in the judgment buff damage talent required to get that is pretty prohibitive, so that kind of sucks. But the rest of the tree, you have to make some decisions, and they are hard decisions, but they're interesting decisions about, okay, am I doing a fight that's single target? Okay, I can just run single target stuff, but then, this is a fight that occasionally has a cleave ad. How much stuff that I would just run on single target do I want to drop to pick up stuff that would be good for this cleave situation? Like, do I drop some of the other things for Empyrean Power rather than Fires of Justice? Do I take Tempest and drop another point in somewhere else? Like, those are interesting decisions that I think you can make in those situations, depending on what situation it is. But those are the choices that I really like making when I'm designing a talent tree for a specific encounter. I don't know, I really like the middle section of the red tree, at least. I think it's the top two sections are one of my favorite ones of any class tree any spec tree I've seen. Sorry,
the middle tree for sure. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I think what we have in the tree is cool, and it does feel nice, especially the bottom. I like the bottom bits because it's like all the cool mechanical things, not just
definitely more flashy abilities.
Yeah, like that's what all the cool stuff is. My thing was just when you go for Tempest, you can't get like the AoE judgment thingy, so it's just kind of like it's a bit of a shame you can't full send AoE or full send single target. And I don't even know what kind of talents are all the way on the right, because some of the talents on the left are just so much stronger. It seems, at least, like your holy power, like your spenders increase damage of your blade. It's like that seems really tiny when you could just pick exorcism, which does like way more damage.
Like that.
It's kind of like, okay, well, this is nice, but I'm not gonna ever really pick that, and I'm never gonna really. I don't have to play around that, but it's just there, and you're not really going to go for it, I think.
There's a couple nodes like that. It's that one and the judgment damage buff one, and then like the mastery one, the crits chance on Blade Justice one. There's like a few nodes like that where you're just like, okay, this is probably just too weak for me to ever consider. Like, you just path around them or whatever. But overall, I think, when you're at, 16, 17 points, you're like, okay, where do I want to put my last, 3 or 4 points before I go into the bottom of the tree?
Yeah,
those are actually really interesting decisions most of the time.
I just noticed that the judgment damage one is the only 2 point in the top 2/3 of the tree. Obviously, the last
the Bodge one is also 2 points. Those are the only two.
Bodge.
Yeah, the Seal Verdict. So this whole
is that too? Okay, well, that shows how much I've gone down that side. I didn't even realize.
That's for the Blade of Justice build.
Only those two.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, I guess it's not unique then, but it's like everything is 1 point. You pick it. Okay, I got this now. I've got Blade resets. I've got Exorcism, and then it's like, well, I need to spend 2 points to get like my judgment a bit stronger. At the bottom, obviously, it's fine to put 2 points into it because you're nearly max level, and you're like ramping up. Okay, I get 2 levels, I get 10 plus Vindication, and then boom, I get Final Verdict. That's huge. My judgment damage is kind of okay. I mean, yeah, I'm moving up to it, but it seems like if they did that, we'd still need, if they made it a 1 point, we'd still need the same amount of points to go down to the actual OP talents or the really strong ones. But we could just maybe get like, you know, it wouldn't feel as bad to put a point at Hand of Hindrance because you do have that spare one, kind of. So maybe it would feel a bit smoother.
So if there was like one or a couple of things that you guys would like to see changed on the red talent tree, I mean, like the biggest ones for you guys. Well, what would those be?
I would try and remove, or like buff, I guess, the ones that are really bait. So for me, the really bait ones are Just Cause Vengeance. I think everyone like would have that to just make it do damage at least. Make it do like a bit less damage than 10 plus Verdict, not 25% less, because you know, so you still get some value from the healing, but you know. And then I think Truth Wake and maybe Expurgation needs some love, because Truth Wake is very, very tiny. On live, or like on retail, on Shadowlands, it does 30% of the Wake damage. On Dragonflight, on the talent tree, it does 10%. So that's already a third right off the bat. And it only does some damage on 2 targets when we pick it currently, because we get 50% chance to reset Wake. And on Dragonflight, it's 35%, so that makes it even weaker. I see a lot of people pick it when they're like trying to do some builds, and it's like, this does 0 damage. I'm gonna be honest, it's really, really bad. And then Expurgation, compared to what we had in Nyalotha, when you Google like crit build and your Expurgation was like your second most damage thing, it always felt kind of really weak, because it's just, it doesn't, I don't think it can crit anymore. And it's not flat damage, it's a percentage of your blade damage. And before it was like, your blade now puts a burn for X amount of damage, and that amount was already pretty large, which maybe was too big, but it wasn't a percentage of the blade. And blade doesn't, I mean, it hits hard-ish, but it's not 10 plus Verdict hard, so any percentage off of it is going to be really small. And then there's just like random bug fixes here and there. Like Seal of Wrath currently, it doesn't shoot 2 judgments when it procs. It just shoots the judgment and then it procs Seal of Wrath damage, but doesn't do a second judgment. So it's like these random bugs, which they'll fix probably. But yeah, getting rid of the bait talents would be the best thing in my opinion.
So the row that you have to take to get to the bottom, like the 20-point row, all those talents are utility talents, right? So you got like Hand of Hindrance, Healing Hands, the Just Cause Vengeance Eye for an Eye trait, and then the Consecration stuff. So you have to pick one of them at least to be able to get all the good bottom stuff. You run into an issue if you want to take, like, for example, Execution Sentence and also Final Verdict, because they're on opposite sides of the tree. If you take like Healing Hands, for example, you can take everything except Execution Sentence. Or if you take Hand of Hindrance, you can take everything except Final Verdict. If you want to take both of those things, you have to put a point in Hand of Hindrance and a point in Healing Hands, or like one of the other utility spells, right? So you end up with an extra point that you have to spend on a utility spell in order to even gain access to the abilities. So you're like losing damage early in the tree just to get the specific combo, which I really don't like. I also don't like the fact that you have to spend, you're basically picking which utility talent you take based on what's locked behind it, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to really have a decision about what you pick. It's not like you're actually picking, is this a situation where I want Hand of Hindrance? Is this a situation where I want Healing Hands? No, you just pick the one that lets you get whatever the talents you want behind it are, which I'm also not a big fan of. Apart from that, like I said, I like the tree mostly. The thing I mentioned before about having the couple of talents that were just sort of like flat buffs to random abilities, like the 2 points in Judgment, 2 points in Blade Justice damage, those are pretty uninteresting, and I'd kind of like to see something a bit more involved take their spots instead. I would kind of like it if they swapped the choice nodes for Divine Protection and Just Cause Vengeance. So you'd have Shield of Vengeance, Just Cause Vengeance on a choice node where they're both abilities that heal or absorb and then do damage, and then you have 2 DR nodes together with Eye for an Eye and Divine Protection, where they're both just like flat DR in 1 minute, or like, on a short cooldown. but Eye for an Eye is more specialized in divine protection in sort of general. I think that'd be an interesting way to sort of let you have more defensive options, whereas currently Eye for an Eye JV is like a completely unpicked choice node in any situation. But yeah, there's not that many things that I can really critique with the tree. I think it's a pretty good tree overall.
I feel like you can get Bubble, Spell Warding, Divine Protection, and Shield of Vengeance. That would be a bit...
Who would call down Divine Protection? I don't think that would be that insane.
Yeah, maybe not.
I mean, 4 defensives,
have a defensive...
If you compare to, like, some other specs just have 4 defensive naturally. Look at, like, Monk, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But I feel like you could have a defensive every 30 seconds for, like, nearly 2 minutes.
Yeah, but, like, you know,
straight.
Look at Windwalker, they have Fort Brew, they've got Karma, they've got Dampen Harm, they've got Diffuse Magic. Like,
yeah, that's true.
What's wrong with just letting Ret have a little bit of fun once in a while, you know?
Well, I'm just worried that they see that and they're like, wow, Ret is so tanky. Let's nerf every defensive they have at once. And then you're like, oh no. Or they're like, well, if they're so tanky, they won't mind doing less damage. And it's like, no, I will mind doing less damage. I think that also what you said about Hand of Hindrance being like, you're basically going to always pick it, not because it's good, but because it's on the way to useful stuff. That kind of...
Yeah.
It's not like Crusade. You're always going to pick it because it's Crusade, right? It's my favorite Paladin ability. It's because you go fast, you do big damage. It's the best ability for me. That I will always pick. Hand of Hindrance, yeah, I will, but not really because I want to. So,
I mean, I have a little bit of a problem that they like kind of split it up wings. But yeah, I guess
it's less split now, though.
It's less split. I agree.
Yeah.
But still, it feels like, you know, they ran out of ideas or something for the old Feral, which they kind of fixed in a lot of ways, and Reds. It's like, okay, their major cooldown, let's just split it up into different stuff, and it didn't really feel good. It feels like, okay, guys, don't you have a better idea to do with wings? Plus, this is something that, you know, you have on the general Paladin talent tree there. You have Sanctified Rat. That's like the prod version as well. With Seraphim over there, sure, but it's not like, you know, we used to love Sanctified Rat and we love it now on live, and we loved it in BFA as well because it had the AoE component, which was really nice. Not there anymore. Maybe they could have had that baked into Avenging Rat as a talent rather than stripping the crit or whatever. So there's a lot of examples like that, but
I honestly think they should have kept the crit in Avenging Rat.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because we're never gonna pick it, because Crusade is just a better version of Wings. So you could have Wings, or you could have better Wings. Like that choice is just, it's made for you. I think if Wings was the same, and you had to pick between Crusade and Light's Decree, because Sanctified Wrath is already like the prod thing that we have in the main tree.
Yeah.
That would be like an actual choice you could make. And they could make Crusade like the Legion one for the amount of haste you get. Mm-hmm. And they could make Sanctified Wrath like having 3 Light's Decree traits like you had in BFA.
Yep.
And then it was like actually a lot of damage. Like on AoE, it was tied with Divine Storm. It was huge.
Yeah, it was insane, yeah.
And then you could have like a huge Crusade where you're very, very fast, because you had like nearly 40% haste or some crazy amount. And then that was the most fun for me, having Legion Crusade. So they could make it compete by like having a very single target option. They could make it, I mean, if they really want to emphasize single target versus AoE, maybe during Light's Decree your Divine Storm does more damage, and during Crusade your Templars does more damage. Like they could make it really obvious which one you should pick. They could make it not so obvious and make it a bit interesting. But the crit being there is just you're deciding between Wings or Wings squared. You're picking Wings squared every time. It's not even. Yep. I don't think it's a discussion there we had.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It felt like they lack ideas, and they just throw it in there and split it up like that. Where the obvious choice now, it's like Crusade all the way. There's no debate, and this is what I'm saying. It feels bad because it's a choice place over there, and if you have like such a clear winner, then it kind of defeats the purpose of them, having this. As Bolas mentioned, okay, you have interesting decisions to make on a lot of the nodes or whatever. On the Wings part, it's like, okay.
It's not a decision at all,
Yeah, it's
like the minor nodes have like 10 times the brain power attached to it, the major ones. And it's like, okay, well.
Yeah, And I think, very, very important aspect here in regards to the so-called utility stuff. If you put that behind throughput on the spec tree, there's nobody's gonna care. You're just gonna go for, okay, what you wanna build. I don't think, again, this is, they have not explained their philosophy behind this. We're still waiting, guys, to understand why. But everybody and their moms is gonna go for, the thing they wants to do more, the biggest damage, or the build that they want to go for, ignoring that maybe a healing hands or a hand of hindrance would be, something useful in the fight. Now, because they're blocking one of the coolest things you can have as a red, it's I don't know. I mean, I get it's not a bad tree overall, but man, the issues that the tree has, I feel they're so easy to fix just by moving around a couple of talents and making it a little bit more logic in a sense. I don't know. I'm just like thinking about it. Do you guys think we covered all the things, or was there something that you guys wanted to bring to the table we did not address? Just looking at
for the talent trees.
Yeah. For the red tree or for
the red tree
trees in general?
The red tree.
I feel like it's like 80-90% there, and it's like there's some things you could swap around for improvements. Like I think we've covered pretty much all the things that you might want to swap around to improve, but it's pretty solid, and with a couple of tweaks, it'll be really good. Is basically how I feel about the red tree.
Was there any particular case you wanted to make regarding the general Paladin talent trees?
Oh boy, I think I'm kind of okay with it. I know there's big improvements that can be made, mainly between picking like the utility stuff that we've had and the damage stuff that we need. But I think my opinion is kind of basic on it. I think Bolas has way more in-depth stuff to say about it.
Sure.
Yeah, I really do not like the Paladin tree at all. So they did a redesign, a restructure of it on Thursday, I think, last week. So there's a lot more branching paths. So theoretically, you can cross across the tree and take a bunch more different talents than you could before. Before it was very sort of linear. Once you were on a path, you were sort of just on that path. So that structurally, theoretically, an improvement. But there's just so much damage in the tree. Like, after you pick the 8 talents at the top, so like your first 3 talents, you just go towards the 25% extra judgment damage, and you've got about 5 talents to play around with at the top. And then after that, I think you have 2 talent points total in the rest of the tree. The other, 23 points that you spend? Out of 23 points, 2 points are not spent on throughput or getting to throughput. The other 21 points you just spend either on throughput talents straight up or getting to throughput talents. It's insane the amount of damage they packed into this tree. It feels like we have 2 spec trees rather than having a class tree and a spec tree.
Yeah. You basically go to pick spell warding and rebuke, and everything else is damage.
Even rebuke is on the path to getting damage. Like,
I mean, you need it. But because it's like you get your wing stuff, you get the crit stuff, you get all the way down to Sanctified Wrath, you get Mad Paragon, you get your defensive CDR. Actually, that's not exactly throughput. That's pretty good. You get Divine Purpose. You get the sacrifice thing with the sacrifice damage. It's like, okay, that's like 4 points that are, 3 or 4 points.
Well, you say Unbreakable Spirit isn't damage, but it reduces the cooldown of Shield of Vengeance, which is...
it depends if you go Divine Proton or not,
point.
so that's why I kind of caveat, but... Yeah.
This is similar to what... Sorry. This is similar to what the priest talent, the general talent tree has been, where at least for Shadow Priest, there was like almost like 2 or 3 button nodes that you could get that were not throughput. And once they've changed it, it's like flipped 180. So that's, I mean, maybe a little bit of reassurance that they can take a little bit from that, where they could rearrange the throughput, maybe bake it into some existing points into the retribution tree, and just add the more utility. Since between, I don't know, Priest and Paladin, we can argue which one has more group utility in the spec, and maybe they can take a page off of the Shaman, which the general talent tree is like 3 nodes throughput, and it has like double the amount of nodes total or something crazy like that. So there's definitely a potential to make it a lot more interesting. But yeah, what I'm seeing is like, I'm seeing Jesus, like, do you even take aspirations of divinity? Because I was trying to get to Sanct Wrath and Mad Paragon, and I don't have enough points to that. I'll probably have to sacrifice some defenses for that. But it's so much throughput here. That's maybe something they can definitely address.
Tell me,
I wouldn't mind if they kept the bottom like part of the tree as like, this is the throughput section, right? Where it's like, okay, you get to here, and now you're getting Mad Paragon and Sanctified Wrath and Dusk and Dawn and all these like, you know, pretty major abilities. I don't mind if they keep that in the bottom, but the entire middle section is also throughput. It's just everywhere. All of it is just throughput.
Yeah.
Why can't I just take utility? Why can't I take abilities that heal?
I just want freedom. Man, imagine this. Imagine the last fight in the raid, does a lot of damage constantly, so you need Lay on Hands for like those very scary moments, but it also has a slow, and then okay, well, I guess I have to pick freedom and Lay on Hands, so I just lose horse.
At least like the top section, you can sort of play around with points a little bit easier. If you wanted any other stuff in the middle, like if you want like Judgment of Light, dropping spell warding, I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
It's too good.
Yeah. No, but even then, like, okay, what if you have to cleanse as well? Like, you're in a dungeon, you're probably going to use Lay on Hands, you're probably going to use a bit of freedom maybe here and there, and you maybe use a Dispel. So now, top of the tree, completely hard locked into those 3 things, and you have 0 flexibility. Whereas you could just have cleanse in the middle somewhere, and then not have, I don't know, Seal of Reprisal, which is like damage, the Holy Power Spender is doing more damage, and that 4% crit there. That could just be gone, and then suddenly, you can take Judgment of Light, you can take Cleanse, you can take Freedom. And
After Image,
what's After Image again? Oh, it's the walk thing,
it gives you extra walks,
So that's, they like put some slight off healing in there, which is like, that's cool. I'm not going to pick it though, because I'm a DPS class, and that's what I'm here for. Like, you wouldn't be brought to the raid, unless Ret did 20% more damage than anyone else, and then you could throw away some of the throughput talents to get healing. But I don't think Red's ever going to do that with damage.
I really wish we had a tree where it was like, you know, okay, you've got like the couple of points you put in throughput, that's whatever. And now you get to pick, you know, do you want to be tankier? Do you want to be able to off heal? Do you want to have these specific, you know, niche utility spells like Freedom or Bot, or like, you know, I guess Bot's not that niche, but you know what I mean, right? Like these things that are like useful in specific situations, but you don't pick generally. But you know, you might need to drop like one of the defensive nodes for it. But none of those things exist. Like, you know, you don't get the option to do any of that. You have no choice. You just like pretty much hard locked into the tree after the first like 8 points, and there's nothing you really pick.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at the priest one right now because you mentioned it. I haven't really bothered because I've never played a priest really, so I didn't even check it too much. But it looks like they've got like at the bottom, they've got the throughput stuff, the mind games, or some of the mind game stuff, and then on the other side they got some healing talents. And in the middle, they've got like 3 throughput things, and everything else is like PI, or which is throughput, I guess. But you got utility on like your fear, you got utility on your raid cooldown, you got some mind blast slows, mass dispel. It feels a bit more flexible. Like you're gonna go down the middle, pick power infusion, and then you can go a bit on the left and get some utility. On the right, all you need is the mind blast cooldown, I think, and then you're fine with way more flexible in there.
The thing with the priest tree as well is that you get the throughputs and you have to spend about a couple of more points to unlock the next gate, which is something that, you know, at least doesn't feel like that for it in the middle part of the tree. And another difference is that at least for Shadow, in terms of damage, mind games is like I think it's the only DPS capstone. While Red has 3? All of them are DPS.
Yeah, they're all DPS.
So I mean,
you can
almost every talent. I think every talent you put in the bottom tree, like part of the tree, is just for throughput.
It's throughput. Yeah.
I don't think you put any talents in anything else.
That's what I'm saying, man. It feels like the tree was made for the same diff.
For your speed and avoidance. But
why would you take that when you can take 10% consecration damage?
I just don't want
consecration. Not a lot of people.
So it gives me a reason not to. And you've got the thing that you get a cheap Word of Glory. You can get a free Word of Glory or a free Shield of Righteous.
Yeah, but there's talents that exist that aren't damaged, but you'd never take them. Is just what I mean, right? Like
I mean, you got 12 talents. And,
points.
12 talents and 10 of them do damage. It's like, whew.
Yeah,
that's a lot of juice.
My copium on this is the same issue they had with the priest talent, kind of the same issue with Druid as well. And I know for a fact the same developer worked on Druid and Priest. I'm kind of thinking that was the same guy that worked on Paladin as well. And he's gone. So my copium is, we got the updates for Priest and Druids. Can we hope?
Maybe.
Can we hope for a big blue post?
I'm very high on hopium.
I think all of us are.
From what I said about how the class tree, I don't think it's too bad. I'm already gone on the hopium. I think maybe we'll be okay, guys. Maybe
it's not too bad in terms of like the stuff that you actually get, but it's bad in terms of you have no choice. Like there's no decisions that you make when you're taking the tree. You just like, import your build, you're done. That's for the expansion, that's all you run.
Pretty much, yeah. Although maybe there's that one fight where you can one-shot something with Turn Evil, because it does say in there that you have a chance to destroy lesser creatures. So maybe if there's like...
Can you imagine? That's why you bring the red, baby. That Turn Evil OP Gigashot.
One-shot a skeleton in the middle of the fight. Boom, look at that, guys. Did you see it? And then everyone in the Discord goes, nah, no one saw it. Oh, okay.
Oh, right.
Like the copium I'm having for the tree is like... that the changes that we saw last week were just structural changes, and then next week we're going to see all the talent root. So
the mechanical changes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlikely, but that's what I'm clinging to.
Keep the cope alive, man. It's going to happen for sure. I don't know if this is going to be huge things, but I think the red players deserve a big ass blue post. At least some of the things need to be explained, and maybe, off of that, some other stuff can be iterated on, because I honestly don't believe there's going to be an overhaul like Priest had, or I don't have copium for that. And I don't think it's really that necessary, to be honest, but some sort of reasoning behind a lot of the things is needed. Maybe, an explanation could lead off to some better understanding on, and obviously some more changes and updates to be had over there. But currently, it's all radio silence, and the things that we got are not like close to sufficient for us to at least understand what the hell is behind some of the things they decided upon.
I mean, Red can always get the arcane treatment, which was just moving a couple of nodes around, like 3 or 4 nodes, and it just made the talent tree massively make more sense, because I was kind of getting the similar feeling, although Red is a little bit more straightforward than what Arcane was. But Arcane was like, where am I building? What am I taking? And it was a little bit all over the place. And although Red is slightly like that, at least from a noob perspective, it's not that much. So 1 or 2 things moved either left or right, or maybe create an extra path that wasn't there before. So, not be forced into utility to unlock a gate, which I don't know if there's any spec that does this right now. And not unless it's like a general utility, like I could see probably Healing Hands, but Hindrances is just way too niche to unlock like a whole side of the talent tree.
What if you want to go that final verdict, bro? What if you want to? That's the thing, right? There's no. You are not gonna care about Hindrance or Healing Hands if you like really want, final verdict or execution sentence, something like that.
Yeah, like just Tempest to Vindication and Exorcism to Relentless Inquisitor. Feels like you're forced into Hindrance instead of it being like a choice.
Well, the thing is, it's like all the utility we have. That's all the buttons that don't do damage. They're all like single target. It feels a lot of the time. So that's why they always feel weak. If Hindrance was like an AOE slow, they would feel kind of cool. But instead, you slow one mob, so you never care about that in PvE, basically ever. And it's the same for like sack. You sack one guy. It's like, okay, maybe that's useful. That's why a lot of times it feels kind of unimpactful when you press the red utility that you have so much of. It's like, it doesn't do anything to the raid of the group, so.
It's also very specialized, so it
exactly. It
depends a lot on the encounter design. So I think Max talked about this with was it with Ian where they used the DK analysis where grip is so specialized, but when it's needed, boy Jesus, does it make the world better. And even when it's needed, like I as a main tank, when I get sack, it's really good, but it doesn't feel like, with sack we can totally turn this fight around as it is with the DK on, what is it, Soul Render or whatever.
What do you mean, man? Yeah. I made a difference when I sacked you. Shut up.
It was good, man. It was good sack.
when you sack, you might save the tank, but you're probably gonna die. That's the problem.
No, don't worry. I'll probably bubble that shit. I think I did that on Skolix.
Man.
No, fuck that. That ain't gonna help.
Like, if you sack a blood DK on Jailer and he gets meleeed, your health goes to 30 because that's the lowest it can go with sack.
Yeah.
And if there's any other damage, you're dead. That's kind of rough. Like the DK, he might, he's gonna take half his health and damage because Jailer hits hard. You're gonna take more than that. When you gave him an external, it doesn't. It's a bit scary. Yeah. It doesn't feel super good. Like I don't know. I feel like the recompense talent, where the damage that you sacked goes into your next judgment and it hits hard. That could have just been, when you sack, you don't take any damage. So sack is like an actual flat external now.
Oh, that'd be so much better.
That would be really strong. I'm worried because that's like stronger than Bark. That's nearly on the tier of Paints Up, but it would be. Very nice, because then you wouldn't die, and it's not an issue for Holy Pallies because they have Divine Protection up for whenever they want, so they don't really care.
Imagine that.
Was this ever a PvP talent? Sacking somebody reduces the damage that you take for its duration.
The damage you take.
Yeah. Not from sack, from general, because I feel like this is not necessarily a new mechanic.
Oh, it lowered the damage you would take from sack. It was a PvP talent. I think it still is.
There's another rank of it that just reduces the damage that you take from the sack damage that doesn't exist in Dragonflight. I think it reduces it to you only take 80% of the damage instead of all of it.
Yeah, or 75 maybe. Yeah,
something like that.
But so you don't take 1-to-1 damage, because that's the problem with sack sometimes is it's an external, but only for that guy, because the raid damage doesn't really change because he doesn't take it, but you take it instead. So when you compare it to other externals, it's just a flat mitigation. That damage is just gone from the group. No one will take it. So that's why sometimes when you sack, like my tanks once asked me to sack and I was on like low-ish health and there was raid damage. I just said no. Like I just can't, I'm sorry. Like I'm gonna die. You're probably gonna survive. I'll be ready with the lay on hands to snipe you, but I'm not sacking because I'm gonna die. It's not worth it.
But yeah, I think one other thing, kindly remove some of the things from the GCD, please. At least,
I think it's time. I think after
Pony would be a good
after
start.
so many years, it's good. It's time to do it.
Yeah,
I feel like Pony or Freedom, one or the other. Or not both, because then you're just kind of zooming around. But
yeah, I mean, I just said Pony would be a start. That's it. Yeah. Maybe some of the. Go ahead, Bolas.
Freedom being like a external buff you can use as well. It makes sense to have that on the GCD because there's a lot of other things that kind of do similar things that I think are also on the GCD. I think Tiger's Lust is, but I'm not.
Tiger's Lust is GCD, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the roars as well, like the raid cooldown roar.
Yeah. But I don't think any other. I think I looked this up, and no other melee had that had a sprint effect had it on the GCD. Every single other sprint was off GCD. Yeah. Like how many melee did I look up for? It was like 10 abilities or something, and Divine Seed was the only one that was on GCD. It's like, Spirit Walk and the Feral one and like Disadvance, obviously, and Sprint itself. Like there's everything. Every spec that has one, Divine Seed is the only one that is on the GCD. It doesn't make any sense.
So I had a paper. I wrote like notepads. I have like way too many notepads of like thoughts for the beta and everything. And I had one where I went through all the speed ups in the game, and I was like, the only one that's on GCD is like Horse and Tiger's Lust, I think, for melee. And it's like, well, can I get a bit of love? Like Freedom being on global, it's fine. I guess you're right. I hadn't thought about it being like an external. I'm a bit selfish when I play, I think. But so it's like Tiger's Lust, but Horse is like, it lost like 3-second baseline. You press it, and then half of the duration you're just waiting on the GCD to press another button. That's half of the time you don't press it in raid because you get moved. You got to move a little bit. So if you press Horse, by the time you get to the target, the global's not finished. So it doesn't make a difference. Or you could just walk there. So you lose a global by pressing Horse, or you lose a global by walking there. It's like you just lost a global in both situations. That's how it feels sometimes. Like on Lehuvin, when you get a tiny knockback, you get like pushed back and you got to run back in. It's like I never pressed Horse there because I'm back in melee in like about a GCD, so it doesn't really matter what I do.
Yeah, press charge.
Yeah,
press charge. Yeah, Shadow set.
Well,
just advance it.
I guess we kind of covered most of the glaring issues for Ret Paladins, and having the copium strong on next week's build, maybe 2 weeks, but I'm hoping this week we get some nice juicy blue post and a couple of updates. Want to stress out again, if you guys want to check out the boys, Frenchie and Bolas, first of all, you can always find them on the Hammer of Red Discord, which is the place to be for all things Red. And you can check out the Wowhead guide for Red on live, and his thoughts on the Ret Paladin Dragonflight, plus the forum post. There's a lot of feedback there. We're going to have all the links in the description. If you are listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, you can check the description on YouTube and check the boys out. Then that being said, thank you, Mr. Frenchie. Thank you, Mr. Bolas, for joining. It was a pleasure, as always.
Yeah.
Got to do this more often, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Oh, for sure. And who knows, if we do get a major update where basically our talk is useless.
They split Cavalier into one more node.
Yeah, that's what they're gonna do. I think as long as we get the blue post before release and not after release of the expansion.
That would be great. That would be amazing. For sure. But thank you guys for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for listening, for watching. Let us know your thoughts on in the comments, and we shall catch you next time with a brand new spec to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully, in a positive manner.
Positive.
Yeah.
It's all looking uphill from here.
Yeah.
Downhill.
Right. Bye-bye, everybody. With Shadowlands.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.